I want to ask you a little bit about September 27th, 2020. As a member of VCTF, were you working a specific shift?
Yes, ma'am. We work 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. That's our standard shift, unless something else that's happening in the county dictates that we change it.
And do you work in a specific area?
We have the entire county as our jurisdiction.
And during your shift that night, did you respond to a White Rock Terrace?
Yes, ma'am.
And how were you informed of this call?
I believe it was through the radio. There was a shooting that was dispatched, and I couldn't tell you exactly how many of the members of my team, but we were together on a meal break.
And how long did it take you to get over there, if you recall?
I couldn't give an exact time frame, but maybe about 10, 15 minutes. I'm not 100% sure.
When you arrived, what did you observe going on?
When I first got to the scene, there was an ambulance that was parked in front of, I believe, the incident location. And there was a stretcher that was being loaded into the back of the ambulance where there was a male that I visually observed on the stretcher.
And did you see a female?
Yes, there was a female that was being placed in the back of a marked patrol car, I believe. But I saw her for seconds, and then she was placed inside the vehicle.
And were there a lot of law enforcement on scene?
Yes.
And what, if anything, were you tasked with doing?
Initially, when we get to a scene, we wait to see what needs to continue to be investigated or what people need help with. And there was information that said that the defendant went to the neighbor's house after the incident that took place. So myself, Detective Din, and I believe somebody from patrol went to that residence to make contact with the neighbor.
And what was your purpose of making contact?
To have an interview completed with the neighbor to see what he knew happened.
And that home, and I apologize if you just said it, is directly next door.
Correct. If you're looking at the front of the incident location, it's the first house immediately to the left.
And what happened when you got over there?
When we went over there, Detective Din completed the interview with the neighbor, and then after the interview, we collected a multi-waiver for the house.
And what is that?
Multi-waiver is a form that's two-sided, and it has multiple different agreements that we can have. So if we go to a scene, for this particular case, the multi-waiver is something that we collect from the person to get consent to enter and search their house with their permission in lieu of having a search warrant written sent to a judge.
And was Mr. Sant okay with you entering his house?
Yeah, I believe so, yes. I believe he signed it, but I have not seen the multi-waiver in 4 years. So.
Okay. And were you listening in on the interview, and I don't want you to tell me what was said between Detective Din and Mr. Sant?
I was there for a portion of the interview, but not the entire thing.
Was something that you heard in the interview, did it cause you to go do something else?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what was that?
To collect a firearm that was inside the residence.
Okay. And did you enter Mr. Sant's home?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you locate the firearm?
Yes.
And where was it?
If you were looking at the front door, as soon as the front door opens, immediately to your left on the ground was the firearm, and it was just below a window that was next to the door.
And what, if any, observations did you make about the firearm?
Initially, the first observation was that there was a magazine inside the firearm. Appeared to be a semi-automatic black pistol, and the slide, which is the portion of the top of the pistol that retracts to unload a round after it's fired and then load a new round, was partially it wasn't completely seated in the forward position. There's a very small amount of it that was to the back. And
did you examine the gun on scene to determine why it was like that?
Yes.
And what did you see?
When I saw that, the firearm, you could see a little bit of ammunition or a round of ammunition inside the chamber. But then after that, that was the only observation I could see with it on the ground.
And did it appear, and was that a live round?
When I cleared the ammunition that was inside the chamber was an unfired live round that was still able to be fired, or appeared to be able to be fired.
And I guess I should ask you, once you find a firearm, what do you do with it?
Generally, the first task is to make it safe, clear the firearm.
And so what does that mean?
So it would be pointed in a safe direction. The magazine is always the first thing to be removed from the firearm. So if you pull the slide to the rear and the magazine is still inside the firearm, one round will eject, but it will subsequently load another round into the chamber, which would make it still a live weapon.
And so did you remove the magazine?
Yeah, the magazine was removed first, and then after that, the slide was locked to the rear to prevent the slide from going forward. And when the slide was pulled to the rear, that's when the live round of ammunition was ejected out of the chamber.
Thank you. And at some point, did you take a photograph of the firearm?
Yes.
I'd like to show you what's been pre-marked with state 17. Will you take a look and tell me if you recognize that photo?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
That's the firearm that I photographed and collected.
And does that photograph appear to accurately depict the firearm
Yes.
on that day? Your Honor, the state would ask to enter and publish state 17.
Mr. Taylor, is there any objection to the admission of State 17?
No, sir.
Received.
And Your Honor, once I'm done, can I just have it passed?
Okay.
Thank you. Once you made the firearm safe, what'd you do with it?
After that, it was placed in a new property bag.
And then did you take it to property and evidence yourself?
No, ma'am.
And what'd you do with it?
I waited with the firearm until CST, I believe it was CST Conlon, arrived to the neighbor's house and took custody of the firearm.
And a CST, what is that?
Crime scene technician, ma'am.
And were you asked to conduct any further investigation in this case?
No.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
All right, if we could go ahead and publish State 17. Mr. Taylor, hold on one second. They're publishing State 17.
Thank you.
May I see a copy of the front?
Of course. You can see the actual exhibit. All right, cross-exam.
Afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon, sir.
I think we can agree that your testimony pretty much revolved around the firearm.
Yes, sir.
You have experience with firearms.
Yes, sir.
There's various reasons why a handgun such as this might jam, correct?
Might jam, but what was with the firearm was not consistent with a jam, sir.
Okay.
The firearm was just slightly out of battery, which means that the slide was not locked to the rear.
And that's the exclusive reason for it to have been in the condition that it was, you think?
There's multiple reasons why the slide wouldn't go to the complete forward position,
That's what I
but
want.
what was with the firearm was not what would be consistent with a jam. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so let's concentrate on the slide.
Yes, sir.
Are there various reasons why the slide would have been in that position?
Yes.
Is one of those reasons, Detective, someone who is not holding the gun firmly enough?
One of them can be if the way that the firearm reacts with recoil, especially with a pistol, is when the firearm is shot, it has to be firmly held in place for the slide to actually be able to use its own force to push back, eject around, and load a new one, sir.
Okay, and as a relative expert with firearms, you go to the range regularly, I would assume?
Pretty decently, sir.
All right, and you make certain when you fire a pistol that you are holding it firmly enough so that that doesn't happen?
I do, yes.
Okay. That comes with practice,
Yes,
and that comes with knowledge of the firearms.
I would say so.
So if somebody were a neophyte in the actual firing of the firearm and was scared and petrified, if they weren't holding it tightly enough, that slide could end up in the position that you found it in.
It could, but I think the thing that normally happens more commonly when it comes to a pistol and a grip being weak is that the round is still going to fire, but what happens is that the slide goes backwards, but it doesn't fully eject the round, which caused something that's called a stovepipe. So the best way that I can explain that is that the firearm wants to load a new round of ammunition into the chamber, but the old round has to come out first. So what happens as the chamber is coming back, it actually goes forward, and then the shell casing that it wanted to eject gets stuck in that slide, so it can't go forward anymore.
Okay. And one of the other ways would be as we discussed.
It could be, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Could be ammunition, a spring, various things.
Failure to hold it tightly.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. No further questions.
Redirect?
No, Judge, thank you.
Can this witness be released?
Yes, Judge.
Sir? Mr. Taylor? Can the witness be
Yes.
released from his subpoena?
Yes.
All right, sir, you're released from your subpoena. You're free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.